Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our invocation today was by Rotarian Reverend Tim Taylor.
May we pray? Almighty God, our Father and source of all goodness, we give you thanks for this glad day, for the generosity and concern for our community that make possible a new chapter of expanded service to this center of higher learning. We pray you to continue to bless all our colleges and schools, that knowledge may be increased among us, and all your children reach that full potential which is your will for each of us. Grant us vision and courage to serve our community as good stewards of your bounty, and with thankful hearts in praise to you, from whom all blessings flow. Amen.
Thank you, Tim. Please be seated. Robbie Jean Anderson, a PCC freshman, is going to come up and give us a little music today. She is studying under the Rotary Education Assistance Program. It's a Rotary grant and scholarship program that we administer. She will come up and sing, and she'll be accompanied by Jeff Jordan. Robbie?
If you look inside your heart, you don't have to be afraid of what you are. There's an answer if you reach into your soul, and the sorrows that you know will melt away. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth that a hero lies in you. It's a long road when you face the world alone. No one reaches out their hand for you to hold, but you can find love if you search within yourself, and that emptiness you felt will disappear. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth that a hero lies in you. Lord knows dreams are hard to follow, but don't let anyone tear them away. But hold on, there will be tomorrow. In time, you'll find a way. day, and a hero comes along with the strength to carry on. And you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth that a hero lies in you. Lies in you.
Rotarians aren't used to this every week, beautiful music like that. I would like to welcome you to this historic meeting of the Paducah Rotary Club here on the PCC campus. I would like to introduce my fellow Rotarians to the left, Reverend Tim Taylor, Wayne Shelton, who is chairman of the REAP Board, Dwayne Tucker, vice chairman of the REAP Board, Ed Barker, Rotary President-elect, Steve Bright, first vice president, James Harris, second vice president, and William Chip Cox, treasurer of the Rotary Board and the REAP Board of Trustees. Thank you. We do have a couple of Rotary announcements. Next week, don't forget the kettle drive, the Salvation Army kettle drive. Please bring your donations or your business donation that day. Henry Mueller does have a sign-up sheet out front for people to ring the Rotary or the Salvation Army bell. Next week, we also will have at the Rotary meeting the district governor. He will be meeting with the Rotary chairmen at 11 a.m. in the Cobb Ballroom. So if you're a chairman and head of a committee, we need to be there at 11. We will have elections of officers next week. I would like to tell you a little bit about why we're having this meeting here today. Last year, John R. Anderson, the past president, was approached by Gene Catterjohn, and Gene asked John, he said, wouldn't it be great if Rotary could make a donation or do something for PCC for their engineering program? And they both smiled and said, that would be wonderful. You know, we don't have the money, or we don't know how we would do that. And John shared this suggestion with Shirley Hoy. Shirley's the executive director of the Rotary Club, and she just kind of mulled this around for 6 months, thinking, what could we do? I became president of the Rotary Club in July, and in about September, she mentioned it to me. She said, you know, PCC engineering drive is heading into the final chapter, and they're needing more money. Said, you know, what could Rotary do? So wouldn't it be great if we could give them $10,000, $15,000 to help them towards their goal? And I said, Shirley, that's wonderful. We don't have the money. How are we going to do it? You know, well, Shirley Hoy, she's one you don't say never to, or that you can't do something. And she kept mulling this back and forth, talking to different Rotarians. And just 2 or 3 weeks ago, Shirley began brainstorming, how can Rotary come up with the money to give to PCC? And the Rotary Education Assistance Program is a scholarship and grant program that's run by the Rotary. We have an antique quilt show that we put on every year to raise money for this. And we've already given out over $100,000 in scholarships in the last few years. So Shirley got the REAP Board of Trustees, and they met with David Denton, and they were trying to come up with some way that we could find some money for the engineering program. And this was just like 2 weeks ago. And so they came up with a few ideas, and they wanted to get the Rotary board and the REAP board together for a lunch meeting with Dave Denton and Fred Paxton, and we met for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and scratched our heads, and these guys came up with a way to do something for the engineering program. And the Rotary Club, we voted unanimously at these board meetings to do this. We brought it before the members, and they rose to the occasion and said, yes, we want to do this. And so the Rotary Club is pledging to donate $100,000 to the PCC engineering program. And so that's why Rotary is here today, to give our part to Paducah and to PCC and to the PJC board. And the rest of it is Dr. Lynn O'Hara, our fellow Rotarian. We'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Bill, and thanks to the Rotarians for that marvelous gift. That's an extraordinary gesture on behalf of the Rotary Club. My fellow Rotarians and faculty and staff, legislators, donors, friends, and members of this extraordinary community, this is a very special day for us. We hadn't planned to do it quite this way, but when Rotary came up with this wonderful offer, it was one you couldn't refuse. And it shows that we've been flexible throughout this drive to raise the $8 million to build an engineering school. From this day forward, Western Kentucky will never be the same. You and hundreds of others like you have captured and embraced this vision, a vision which is far, far larger than building an engineering school, although that in itself is cause for an enormous celebration. It is a vision which will transform both how we see ourselves and how others see us. For too long, you have watched your young, talented people leave the area to secure those high technology jobs. For too long, we have watched when the prized economic development opportunities have gone to someone else, typically outside of our Commonwealth. And for far, far too long, westernmost Kentucky has given more to the Commonwealth than it has received. Today, thanks to you, we embark on a journey that will change all of that. For us and for the entire Commonwealth, I'm proud to say that this college and this faculty and this staff will play a central role in all of that. Before I introduce some of the people who have made this possible, permit me to read something that we wrote some time ago. It has helped us throughout this campaign to remain focused on what we were trying to do and why we were trying to do it. And the words are still useful to us today. It's a piece that we wrote called Why Kentucky Must Act Now, and I'll read only 2 paragraphs from it. Kentucky ranks at the bottom, 50th among the states in federal research and development, 48th in PhD scientists and engineers in the workforce, 47th in university research and development, 43rd in new companies and new patents issued, and at or near the bottom on virtually every other important scientific innovation measurement. This comes at a time when we know that the standard of living of our children and our grandchildren will be determined largely on the degree to which the Commonwealth can capture the high ground in the 21st century. As a radical transformation in how we see ourselves is in order. No longer need many Kentuckians be have-nots constrained by geography or limited natural resources. Today, communication technology has leveled the playing field. In fact, it has tipped the balance in favor of those who are not constrained by the old ways and by the old bureaucracies. There is a window of opportunity that will allow Kentucky to be catapulted into the 21st century as a strong and even dominant competitor. For this to happen, a number of key variables must be in place. Fortunately, all of them are here in westernmost Kentucky. Call it great planning, foresight, or fate. Whatever the cause is, far western Kentucky has the will, the raw materials, the financial and physical infrastructure, and support in high places to construct a higher education institution for the 21st century. And that's what we're about doing here today. One of our fellow Rotarians, David Denton, who is the chairman of our fundraising drive, will say more about this in just a little while. But first, I want to introduce, or at least mention, some of the people who made this possible. For me, the single most overpowering element in what we have done here is the depth and breadth and diversity and strength of the coalition that we have put together. Please forgive me if some individuals are not mentioned today. We're going to have a monster celebration sometime in early '95 for our donors and for our participants, and they will all be mentioned. But I want to give you an idea of the diversity of the support we have had and do have, and that's why we've been so successful. First, here you will see before you members of the Paducah Junior College Board of Trustees. If the board will just stand so that you can be recognized. It is this board that has spearheaded and taken on the charge of raising this $8 million. The PCC faculty and staff are here, and they launched this campaign with their donations. Their money came first. And if the faculty and staff would stand, I'd like them to be recognized. Sherry Anderson and Ann Sullivan were the chairpersons of that fundraising drive. We also had the full support of the Paducah Area Chamber of Commerce. In fact, it was they who first chose this project as their project and said this is what is needed in western Kentucky. It was not our idea. We saw that idea and said we would help in any way that we could. So it was the chamber that first came up with this. I want to also thank our local banks, the Paducah Bank, the People's Bank, and Citizens Bank. Together, they have given us just a shade under $1 million for this campaign. We can't forget the city of Paducah and the county of McCracken. Those two entities were willing to put aside every other project that we went for when we went to the legislature this year. Every other project. And place this one as number one, the one they wanted funded, the one that had to be had, and they were willing to put everything else aside. We didn't get the money from the legislature, but I can tell you that getting that kind of attention, that kind of focus, and that kind of support is what brought in the kind of money that we have brought in. And I also want to thank those people who did step aside with their projects. I know that was tough to do, but it meant a lot because it got everyone's attention in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And I want to thank the legislature. Our local legislators did a marvelous job on our behalf. Bob Leeper worked tirelessly in the Senate. And Frank Rash and Rex Smith and Fred Nessler and Charles Jevedin did a fantastic job in the House. When we showed up in Frankfort the first time with our project, we couldn't even get anybody to pay attention to us. Our project was dead on arrival. People had been convinced this was not a good idea, it shouldn't be funded. They were polite to us, and that was all. By the time the legislature closed down this year, the motion was back on the floor to support and fund this project. Now, here's a project that couldn't get time of day. It passed 2-1 in the House, 2-1. Imagine how hard it was, how hard those legislators had to work to turn all of that around. And so we owe them a deep debt of thanks for what they did. I want to thank those people who went to Frankfort with us to testify. Fred Paxton, Bob Merriweather, Marshall Niemer, Joe Frampton, Lee Todd from Lexington, Steve Polston, and Wally Montgomery. I want to thank our friends from Southern Illinois. This is not a Kentucky project. This is a regional project. And firms such as EEI across the river and Lafarge Corporation have given us significant gifts toward this campaign, and we have more support in Southern Illinois. Of course, I want to thank the manufacturers and industries in this area, and I'll just mention a few who have fully supported this project. Air Products, BF Goodrich, Elf Atacam, Westlake Monomers, West Vaco, Martin Marietta, H.B. Fuller, and Ashland Oil. These are national and international corporations. Their influence spreads far beyond far western Kentucky. And many, many local organizations, so numerous I won't mention them. When I introduce one of our key members on the stage here today, I will mention one or two firms. I want to thank Governor Jones. The governor has been with us from the start and has hung in there sometimes when there was tough opposition. As recently as November 3rd, the governor said this, and I can attest to its validity. He said, "You know I am strongly committed to this engineering school right here at the Paducah Community College. I have never wavered one iota from that position." That was on a radio program, and I believe the interview took place in Murray, Kentucky. The Home Builders Association of Western Kentucky came out here Monday night and conducted a phone-a-thon. And as of this moment, and you won't see this figure in the number we have here because we've been very conservative about the number we're going to give you. If it's not in hand, we haven't counted it. But they've raised over $28,000 Monday night calling up the members of the Home Builders Association. Again, going on with the diversity and quickly, the Paducah Area Construction Advancement Foundation gave us $20,000 for this campaign. I talked to Warren Rosenthal last night, and many of you know Mr. Rosenthal. Of course, he's a Paducahian who now is a very successful business person living in Lexington, but he hasn't forgotten his roots. He sent us a significant donation. In fact, he wouldn't mind, I guess, if I told you it was $250,000. But he also said to me last night, "Len, there's a lot more we can do and a lot more we're going to do, and I want you to tell everybody in Paducah that I'm 100% behind this project, and we are going to move a long way from where we are right now." But he congratulated all of you for what you've achieved. I want to take a moment to introduce a group that never seems to get attention, but they are valued people, and I'd like them to stand as I introduce them just briefly. They're my staff. I want to tell you that we have no more people here than we had in 1990 or 91. The same folks are doing the job, and my staff is they're overworked, and I'll admit that they're underpaid, and they work hours that are extraordinary. 60 and 70 hours a week is not uncommon. This week, for a couple of these ladies I'm going to introduce, it's going to be an 80-hour week, and they do 80-hour weeks with fairly high degree of regularity. John Carrico. John is the Dean of Business Affairs, and John is responsible for this entire physical plant. Paul Ross. Paul writes grants for us. He does institutional research for us, and he does a myriad of other things for this institution. Right now, he's responsible for instituting a major landscaping plan on the campus. That's Paul. Sandy Tucker is the Dean of Student Affairs. And her job is to oversee our most important item at this institution, the welfare of our students, and she does an extraordinary job. Barbara Vesey is the Dean of Academic Affairs. And Barbara's responsible for, I always admit this, it's true, my favorite group is the faculty. Not that I don't love everybody, but the faculty is a group that is so important to the success of our institution and of our students. And she's responsible for the academic program here. Steve Patton is the Director of Telecommunications. What a job that is. Steve didn't know what he was getting into when I said, that's going to be your full-time assignment. We are telecommunicated to the gills, and we have barely begun. And he's done an exceptional job. These last three people have borne the brunt of this fundraising campaign. They are the ones that spend those 80 hours and have carried the load, and I want to recognize them. My administrative assistant is Sherry McKeag. We get together each day and plan the day's activities, and just for fun, one day recently we said, during the 15 minutes, let's see how many phone calls we have and how many of them are important. During that 15 minutes, we had 18 phone calls, and every one was important. Now, that's the kind of day she spends when she leaves my office after planning for the day. That's the volume that goes through there. These last two individuals, I will introduce them together because they have become a team that everyone has come to appreciate. And they weren't here when I arrived, but they do extraordinary work. Our Director of Public Relations is Susan Zimmerman, and our development manager, the person who has had to choreograph this, somebody who had no idea what she was biting off when she said that 2 years ago she was willing to take this job. In fact, at that time, I didn't know what it was either. At that time, I said, we're going to try to raise $1 million here, and I need you to help me do it. That's Andrea Lester. The last group I want to introduce is the steering committee, the people who have done the work and led the work to raising these dollars. Sherry Anderson and Ann Sullivan were the chairpersons of the faculty and staff group. Wally Montgomery, who is not here, chaired two groups. He was the chair of the medical campaign and also the Board of Trustees campaign. Both of those were enormously successful. Steve Paulston was the chairperson of our corporate division. Steve here? I do want to tell you that, that of the national firms in manufacturing and industrial area, Martin Marietta is the largest donor that we have, and I appreciate that very much, Steve. Billy Harper of Harper Industries chaired the Advanced Group campaign. And although it's probably not right to call Harper Industries a local firm anymore, I mean, they have grown to such extraordinary proportions, I will tell you that in that category, Harper Industries is the largest donation we have received. And I thank you for that, Bill. Ann Gwynn is the chairperson of the Special and Community Campaign. We invited George Sullivan here today, and I don't see George unless he's in the audience, but George helped us throughout the campaign, through every step along the way. And I must tell you that his dear mother was among those first 8 students who graduated from Paducah Junior College the first year we opened our doors. And one more person, 2 more persons. The chairman of my board, Marshall Niemer, has been with me from the beginning, and everything that we have attempted to do, he's been such a strong supporter. I can't thank Marshall enough for holding me together during those early days when we were trying to figure out what to do, and now holding me together when we're working so hard to achieve this. Marshall, thank you. My last introduction is an individual whose achievements and whose friendship and more are beyond the words I have nor the time I have to tell them. It's an individual who, throughout this Commonwealth, and I've learned that in my travels and in this campaign, is respected by everyone I have met. And it is a volunteered respect. The people come forward and say, what a marvelous human being, how fortunate you are to have this person in your community, and how fortunate you are, Len O'Hara, to have this person working with you on this campaign. And that respect goes right through corporate leaders, the governor, lawmakers, and people throughout all the professions. This person is a person of great integrity, and a person upon whose shoulders all of us have stood throughout this campaign. When it began to look so many times that this was a dead duck, we stood on this person's shoulders and we came back out ahead. And today we're over the top. Although everyone did it and it was a team effort, I want you to stand and congratulate and thank Fred Paxton for everything he has done. The chairman of our fundraising drive, the person who has sparked this campaign throughout and who has helped to guide us when we needed guidance and helped us be flexible when we need to be flexible, will come forward and tell you the remainder of the story. And I want to add my personal thanks to our chairman, David Denton.
When I first came up on the stage, they told me that after President Bill and Dr. O'Hara got through introducing everybody, there would not be anybody left for me to introduce. And I must say that I think they covered it quite adequately. However, there is obviously an introduction and a recognition that is missing. Any great team, especially if you're talking about teams of high energy such as sports teams, typically have what we call today a franchise player. That's that player around whom the entire team operates. That's that player who, if he is not in the lineup, the team is not likely to win. This team has been a marvelous team. It's been a team of high energy from the very first. It's been a team of vision. It's been a team that never once thought that they would not succeed. It's been a lucky team. We've had two franchise players. I echo 1,000-fold everything that Dr. O'Hara just said about Fred Paxton. Without his leadership, without his guidance, without his stature, the team may have not come together. It certainly may not have set the goal as high as it finally did. But there's another franchise player. He's newer to town. He is already well known. He's a youngster in the game, and with him, we're going to go to a lot more championships, and I'm referring to Dr. Lynn O'Hara, and please give him that round of applause. Yes, leadership does make a difference. Some of you in the audience are probably a little beyond the age of 50 years, and so when I mentioned to you the name of H.V. Kaltenborn, you will recall that he was the broadcaster, very popular back during World War II. And when I was a youngster in the foothills of eastern Kentucky and I would listen to the radio with my grandfather, I always loved to hear H.V. Kaltenborn come on the air because he had a great way. He would always say, there's good news tonight. And I'm here to tell you, there is good news in Paducah, Kentucky today. We have a project that has moved forward in grand fashion. Dr. O'Hara asked that I take just a few minutes to talk to you about how the project came together, how we reached where we are, and just a word about where we're going. For many years, people in Western Kentucky wondered why we read grand announcements coming from the Bluegrass area and grand hosannas coming from the Golden Triangle, where they had located yet one more plant, where another 500 or 1,000 jobs were going to be located. And we thought, how in the world are they overlooking Western Kentucky? Why doesn't Western Kentucky, which has so much to offer, ever get a chance at those type of projects and those type of jobs? It takes a jolt sometimes. It takes a shock to your system to make you really look at yourself. And I think that shock to our system came a few years ago when we began to hear the word AVLAS, and we began to realize that it was just possible that that large employer, that plant that we have depended so much on, might not be here forever. And it scared some people. And those people began talking and thinking, and what can we do to say AVLAS? A Paducah Sun newspaper reporter by the name of Bill Bartleman, known by all of you, wrote a rather thoughtful piece in about 1991. It was an article that got a lot of attention. It sort of set in place a notion. Bill said that he had been studying this question about the area's ability to retain Martin Marietta and to get the AVLAS technology. And he had found that we weren't quite as well prepared in engineering support and education as we ought to be. And he thought that was a big plus for the area, or a big minus for the area. And he also said that he had found that perhaps our technology support was not as great as it ought to be. And that was another minus for the area. It was just a notion. It was just an article in the Paducah Sun by a reporter. But that notion began to be talked about, first in the coffee shops, then on the street corners, and before long you hear people mention it at public meetings and things of that nature. And the Chamber of Commerce, as has already been acknowledged, began to look in it a little deeper. And in 1991, to the best of my knowledge, the very first effort by community leaders went forth, and they actually went out into the region, and they met with other institutions in this region, and they met with plants in this region, and they said, we need some engineering support. We need something to get us ready for the year 2000. We need something to help us keep AVLAS, and we need it now. Well, not much occurred, they thought, except something did occur. And what occurred was a vision. And you know what the project is, because today we're here talking about that project in a much more complete and definite form, and that is the 2+2 engineering project. But if you don't know where you're going, any old road will get you there. So planning had to be done. And planning was done with the support of plant leaders, with the support of industrial and community leaders, with the support of PCC. They began testing that vision and said, is this something that's needed? Is this something real, or is it an apparition? Will the community support it? PCC commissioned a feasibility study, and they went out into town and they talked to literally dozens and dozens of people, and they said, would you support this? Would you donate to this? Do you believe the community needs this? Is this your vision for the region for the year 2000? And the answer was overwhelmingly yes, that the community and the region would support a project that would allow us to become competitive in a global economy for the year 2000 and to hold on to AVLAS. And folks, the roll started. And that was in 1992. And then in 93, they began to put together fundraising teams, and committees were formed, and organizational structures were done. And these people seated to my right did hundreds and hundreds of hours of work in order to kick this thing off right and to be ready for the General Assembly. And in 1993, they kicked it off in formal fashion, and we went to the General Assembly. You all know the story there, and there's no sense going back over that, except that I also echo Dr. O'Hara's statements that the people from our legislative team, the people that are legislators in this area that have stood by this project, fought fiercely for it. And I am proud of everything they did, and I am delighted to know that most of them are going to be back up there, and I expect they will support us again because this project is not through. We in 1994 were electrified like we had never been before in a fundraising project in this area, because in 1994, a $4 million matching donation was given to the campaign by an anonymous donor. That is the largest and most generous gift ever been given to a community college in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It is something that set this area and this campaign apart like nothing else could ever been done. And I want to say this community moved forward at that time, not just running, but at warp speed, because the people in the community recognized, hey, this is doable. This is something that can make a difference in this community forevermore. And I will have to say to you that from that time forth, while there have been moments when the fundraising was agonizing, while there have been moments that it was, tedious, there were moments when certainly it interfered with other things, it never slowed down. It was always on track. And not for a moment did we ever doubt but what this community would meet the $4 million matching grant. And as I think you know today, we're going to announce that we did. I would like to say to you, though, this is not the end of a campaign. Those of you assembled in this auditorium are in every sense present at the beginning. This is the start. This is indeed the first step. Everything up to this point in time has been preparatory. You are present at the beginning, because for the engineering college to move forth, for it to be the type of institution that you expect and you deserve, for it to attract the plants and the jobs that you want, it must be of the highest quality. And we don't do that with just one $8 million building. We will have to do that with continued support, and support that will be heavy from the private sector. And I ask that each one of you that have already donated to this campaign begin to think that at the time that your donations are met, your obligation is fulfilled, that you'll have in place some program to help this move on. And others who have not yet given to donated to the campaign will be thinking, how can I help? Because money is going to be needed in the future for the 2+2 engineering program. We cannot look to the state of Kentucky to do it for us. We have tried that for too many years. It doesn't work. The hero, as the lady said, is within us. The hero is seated in this audience and watching on television. It's the beginning. It's the start of a new, perpetual campaign that will never end, because great institutions of learning start that way, continue that way, and never have a termination. Finally, I would like to, at this time, announce our number. I have a correction to make. It's one of those pleasant corrections that have come my way in the campaign. Since we walked in to get our box lunch, the number has gone up well over $100,000. In fact, it could possibly even go up as much as $200,000, but Dr. O'Hara assures me he likes to get the checks in first. So when you look at the number, we apologize, it's a little low, but I think, folks, that's the way you would prefer to have it. I would like to do this at this time. I would like to ask that the members of the Rotary Club and the Board of Trustees lift up the banner. I would like for you people that are involved in the development, everybody on my right, please get behind it. I would like for everybody to give us a round of applause of the numbers, and then we would like to move the banner to the rear, in the foyer, if you would. We have magic markers. We ask everybody in this room, please sign it, put the name of your organization, your president at the beginning. We want to keep this for posterity. Gentlemen, the banner, please. Let these people lower it down. Bill, get going up. And Jeff, y'all go.